All right, welcome to the 1994 podcast by That Nerd Show. I am Marcus Blake.
I'm Alex Moore.
All right, so what is this podcast all about? It's a little bit different from the normal things we do at That Nerd Show. So this is born out of an ongoing discussion about the movies from 1994 and how it probably is the greatest year in movies in modern history. A lot of people will say that 1939 is the greatest year in movies. Maybe, but in the latter half of the 20th century into the 21st century, there has not been a year where we've had so many good movies that we still watch today. So we're going to be dissecting over 70 movies throughout the course of the year. This is our first episode, and we couldn't think of a better movie to start this podcast with since the 2024 Sundance Film Festival just ended. We are starting with Clerks because it was the darling of the 1994 Sundance Film Festival. That's where it got sold to Miramax and kind of started a new wave of indie filmmaking. So I'm going to go ahead and say that out of all the movies of 1994, this one is definitely in my top 5. For various reasons. You're probably going to disagree with me, though.
I think it certainly belongs in the top 10 list.
Okay, all right. Does it crack the top 5 for you?
No, not the top 5, but I have to put it in the top 10 for how important it is. The thing is, there's like you said, there were so many great movies and influential movies in 1994. For it to make the top 10 is still, really showing it a lot of respect. So,
well, I know a lot of people. I mean, since we're based in Texas. I mean, we obviously have to admit that yes, Richard Linklater, Slacker, probably did really start the new wave of indie filmmaking because it came out in 1991, and even Kevin Smith has said that film inspired him to do this. But I don't know if Slacker really has had the impact that Clerks has.
Right.
And, the interesting thing, I was looking up some stuff about Slacker. Believe it or not, it premiered at the USA Film Festival in 1990 right here in Dallas, Texas. But it didn't get into a lot of film festivals. There was a rough cut that they introduced. When they recut the film the next year, Orion Pictures had actually already bought it, and that also got it into the Sundance Film Festival. So it's one of those movies that didn't really get sold on the film festival circuit and become a darling. I mean, it became popular, but it had been playing in Austin at the Draft House for almost a year, as a 16 millimeter film. And again, there's a couple different versions of that film where he had to go back and recut it and all that. Clerks is that one film that was not recut at all. They bought the film, they did not re-edit it as Miramax at the time was known, without director's permission.
They did change the ending though, so
they did, and I was getting to that. That's a good point. Okay. So that's an interesting thing about Clerks is the original ending that we have of Dante and Randall after their fight, kind of making up and talking about their lives and cleaning up the store, isn't the original ending. The original ending was a robbery and Dante gets murdered.
Which, we wouldn't have the 2 sequels if that had been the original ending. They would have had to move on without Dante or bring him back from the dead or do something crazy like that. But so.
Yeah. And I think it kind of worked out for the best. I mean, I think it's interesting that they had both shots and, they allowed him to keep the original ending, but kind of made that suggestion that this is the better ending in case you want to have these characters again, and at that time, I mean, Kevin Smith was off to the races as a filmmaker. He became popular and stuff like that. And later on in this particular episode, we're going to talk about all the films that were kind of inspired by Clerks and its great impact. But we're going to dive into Clerks a little bit and why this is such a great film. It may not have won an Oscar. It may not be, Pulp Fiction or blah, 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 but
Which
it,
was also a Miramax movie that year, by the
it
way.
is. It's true.
Yeah.
So here is my favorite fact about Clerks. Um, on the surface, it looks like this cheesy little comedy in black and white about two convenience store clerks just trying to get through the day, which it is. Dealing with people, and it's an homage to the working man of dealing with idiotic customers. Um, Two young guys trying to figure out what they want to do, go back to school, or be convenience store clerks kind of, thing. But really, if you think about this film, it's a modern day divine comedy. That is very
It feels, I don't know about this from Kevin Smith's perspective, but a lot of that dialogue does remind me of Woody Allen. And so, me being a Seinfeld fan, a lot
yeah.
of the banter and the fact that nothing really happens in the movie and it's all just dialogue and there's no sets, it is a little bit like watching a Seinfeld episode turned into a feature length film in some ways. So, I think for people who like just good comedic writing and just this witty dialogue and maybe are fans of Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, I think it's something that they would enjoy if they haven't seen it yet. So
Oh, I don't disagree with that. I'm not.
yeah,
I think it probably hasn't really come out, but I think you can easily see the Larry David and Seinfeld's influence in there because they shot this in 1993, and
yeah.
that was about the time that Seinfeld really became the hit that it became. It took a few years.
And
Um,
he's from New Jersey, so he's in the area, the tri-state
yeah.
area, not far from New York. So that kind of makes sense too.
But the reason I say this is like the Divine Comedy for hopefully people watching this are smart enough who have read it in college. But for those of you that haven't, Dante's Divine Comedy is about his character that has to travel through the nine circles of hell in this journey. And if you really watch the film, there are nine breaks in the film.
Right.
Throughout the day, it's everything they deal with is their own nine circles of hell. From bad breakups to again, stupid customers, doing the hockey game on top of the roof, the dead guy in the restroom. It's just everything. And to title all of these breaks, like you are entering another circle of hell in your daily lives as a convenience store clerk. I thought that was very, very genius. Now, of course, Kevin Smith is very, very Catholic, so of course you're gonna have a template for storytelling. The divine.
He's still from Jersey though, so I mean,
I mean,
a Jersey Catholic.
I don't know what that means, but now we might have to edit that part out. The Jersey Catholic. Hey, what's this Alex think about us? Just remember, this is my favorite stupid law about from New Jersey. It's illegal to commit murder while wearing a bulletproof vest. But if you take it off, there's a loophole for murder.
Hey, I've got a connection to the tri-state area now because I lived in Connecticut for 2 years. So there's that at least. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, again, I find that really interesting about the film that you have all these breaks and each little segment of what they're dealing with is its own version, its own circle of hell, and then it all comes full circle, by the end, after fights and breakups and stuff between these two characters. And I think the most important thing is Dante and Randall, they're us. I mean, these are characters that we can identify with, because when you're 21, 22, and you're still trying to figure out life and people have moved on, some have stayed behind, and Veronica, the girlfriend, represents somebody that's moving on with her life, and Dante doesn't want to do that, and he wants to go back to something that was fun from high school that wasn't really good, and so on and so on. So there's a lot more going on in this movie than what really meets the eye, and I think that's the brilliance of Kevin Smith's film. And you hit the nail on the head. With not a lot of sets, you have to have great dialogue. You have to have quick, witty dialogue in these conversations that seem mundane but are more philosophical than you realize.
And he probably had a lot of these discussions in real life. I mean, this was a place he actually worked at. I think
Yeah,
is what I was reading. So I certainly no doubt Dante is based on Kevin Smith. So obviously, I think he probably took a lot of notes. Oh, I need to make sure this gets in the movie. I need to make sure that gets discussed in the movie. That's too good, and
well,
people are going to like that.
what's funny is Kevin Smith actually was going to be originally was going to be Randall in the movie, and that's why he had all the best lines. And then Jeff Anderson came along and just embodied Randall more than anything else. And Kevin Smith has also said over the years that the reason he even put himself in the film is if it didn't work out and he basically remained in debt for most of his life, at least he could show the film and said, I at least did that. I was at least in this film type thing. All right. I'm going to start with this question. Who do you feel like is the best character in Clerks?
The guy I think I identify with most is Dante, probably just because he whines so much. So, I mean, how many times does he say, "I'm not supposed to be here today"? I'd like to take
Right.
a tally of that someday. I don't think I've ever done that, but um, no, I think he's my favorite because he's the guy I feel like I relate to the most. He takes his job seriously. He's trying to get through the day and he's trying to do it the right way, but at the same time, he hates what he's doing and he wishes he could do something else, but he doesn't seem to want to put in the effort to do that. And that's something I
Yeah.
totally relate to because I sit here at 41 living in the same apartment for the last 5 years and, you know, hey, I gotta get something done, and it's like, well, do I really want to take the steps to do it? And I feel like it's something a lot of us wrestle with, and he's wrestling with it. So
Well, the great dynamic about the characters is Dante is who we usually are, but we want to be.
yeah,
Randall says all the things and does all the things that we wish that we had the courage to do. And that's why I think he is the best character. Um, he's the manifestation of who we think we are inside. Besides, I mean, how he treats the customers at the video store. And I worked at a video store in high school. So I can literally relate to, you know, the dumb questions.
do you have that movie with that guy who was in that movie a year ago?
No, but I swear to God, if you've ever worked at a video store, anybody who's ever worked at a Blockbuster can literally say this. We've had the old lady. I They don't really give a description on the box. I mean, I don't. We don't know if they're good. Have you heard anything about those movies, ma'am? I feel it's best not to get involved in other people's affairs. And then she tries to fool. But
I
what
don't
about
appreciate your ruse.
my, you're cutting ways to try and trick me? I was merely just pointing out, and I hope it feels good to point out the shortcomings of other people. Literally, that whole scene, I can't tell you how many times I encountered that. The first time I worked in a video store in high school, and then that Blockbuster, and you just like they go, I'm never coming back here to rent, and you just want to run up there. You're never allowed to rent here, ma'am. But you can.
But they'll be back anyway. People
I
say
know.
that, then they come back with their tail between their legs and pretend that never happened.
Right, right. And but yeah, Randall is what we always wish we could be with people. And I say this as a business owner that there are times that I get to be Randall. Like I know I'm not going to get the sale and they're just too difficult to deal with. And I'm like,
Mm,
you know, uh, I had something the other day of running a print business where I closed out an invoice because it took them 2 weeks to not pay it. And then they were like, but it's like, no,
mm.
no, I'm tired of dealing with you. I wasn't going to make that much money to begin with. This isn't worth my time, but nowadays we have to deal with Google reviews and stuff like that. So we have to bite our tongue. So there's even at 45, I'm like, I still want to be Randall. Randall is the brave one.
Who
But
wants to spit water at life?
wow, nice reference there. All right. When was the first time? What was your first experience with Clerks? Your first time watching it?
Well, I know I didn't see it when it first came out. It came out in 1994. It actually didn't go into wide release until October of that year, right around my 12th birthday. I would have been too young, anyway, really. But at some point, during junior high and high school, I was renting a different movie every week at Hollywood Video or at Blockbuster. And at some point, my mother and I decided to rent that movie, and we watched it. And we both thought it was really funny. So I don't remember the exact time, but I just remember at times in high school, certain kids in class would make references, and then I would just kind of hear something, and be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that," and you just start going back and forth on the different moments in the movie.
See, I got a credit. I'm going to give a shout out to a friend from high school, Laura Sanderford, um, who I worked with at a video store back in 95, 96. And I didn't know anything about Kevin Smith. I had not seen the movie. Mallrats was about to come out and she was talking about it. And I was like, well, I don't know what this is. She's like, you have not seen, you haven't seen Clerks? And I'm like, I don't know. Her and I, we kind of broke the rules a lot because we were working at a video store that wasn't so independent that you could just do whatever you want. You still kind of had to follow rules, and you couldn't play PG-13 or rated R movies in the store, even though we did all the time anyway. Did get a customer complaint one time, but they walked in and Blazing Saddles was on the TV, and I'm like, but it's a film making fun of racism. If you're against this film, maybe you are for racism. Anyway, after a discussion, a very slow afternoon, she went and got it, and we played in the store. So I can actually say that I have watched that movie in a video store with a good friend of mine, and then I got to watch Mallrats, and that was my experience. It also made life more bearable in a video store dealing with idiotic customers. Yeah. uh, so we played it quite a bit. Um, so like I said, I don't know where she is today. I think we are friends on Facebook. And if she were to ever watch this podcast, Laura Sandiford, you turned me on to Kevin Smith, and I am forever grateful about that. So, all right, getting back to this film. Um, there's always a debate in film history about classic movies. Should you colorize them like It's a Wonderful Life? Does it ruin the aesthetic quality of the film? And, I am personally of the opinion that old black and white films that came out black and white, don't try to colorize them. They are black and white for a reason. Let them remain black and white. Um, so with that said, do you feel like if this movie had been in color, it would have made it better, or the black and white makes the film what it is?
I honestly don't think that the fact that it's in black and white really makes much of a difference in this particular movie. I but as far as colorizing it, I don't think it should be colorized because it was shot that way, and so that's how we all remember it.
Right.
So I wouldn't change it, but at the same time, I don't know if that's necessarily what makes it what it is. So
Yeah. I I mean it is the dialogue, sure. Okay. but the aesthetic quality of the film, I mean, he even makes reference to the fact that when they made Clerks 3, that the reason you did it in black and white. I know that the real reason they did it is they could afford color, but it
Yeah,
also is a metaphor for the mundane nature of their lives, which I think is beautiful and, fantastic.
it may just be sort of a happy coincidence or convenient, convenient point that just seems to work for that movie, I guess. But
Right. No, I mean, I, again, I think it's accidental why it's in black and white, but there's a great metaphor of why it needs to be black and white.
but
Okay.
you know what they say about movie making though is that there's little accidents like that happen that impact movies, and it makes you think, hey, the movie gods are looking smiling upon us with this one, so we just need to let it go. We need to leave this the way it is. This is a sign. So
To boldly go where printing has never gone before. That's what we do at First Stop Print. From business cards to flyers, to signs and banners, to every kind of marketing material imaginable, we take care of all your printing needs. We have the best prices in the US, and we can beat any competitor, especially with our free shipping on every order. You get the best quality at the cheapest price. So what are you waiting for? Warp speed ahead. Contact First Stop Print today. Engage. So there's a lot of great memorable lines in this movie, and I thought this was very interesting. This was the line that got the movie sold. So back, in the day, Harvey Weinstein didn't really read all the scripts. They had, like any production company, distributor, they had people that would do that. And one of the guys who was reading it got to this line in the kind of the first half of the movie, and it's the line after Dante's girlfriend Veronica tells him that she has sucked 37 dicks, and he goes all apeshit about it. The customer walks in and he says, to the customer, my girlfriend sucked 37 dicks, and like without skipping a beat, in a row.
of course Weinstein liked that line.
Well, no, that wasn't Weinstein who read that. It was
Okay,
the
good.
production guys who read scripts, and immediately took it over to the guy in charge who buys movies, and that alone, they didn't even finish it. The rest of the
Okay.
script, that was the line that was like, you knew he knew it was going to be funny after that. And dude, admit it. I mean, there's like no pause. It's just great timing, and they're having this fight. My girlfriend's like 37 dicks in a row. You know, uh,
Yeah,
my
that's not the only example of a great line from the customer, because I think my favorite was when the guy in the hoodie comes in and he goes, "Nice cat, what's his name?" And he's like, "Annoying customer." He goes, "Fucking dickhead." And you don't even see him saying it, but it's such a good line. Just the
yeah.
way he said it. I mean,
No, I love the lady that the lady that's looking for the milk. Or no, no, no. The guy that's looking for the perfect egg. And then the woman comes over and explains she has seen this before. And they're
uh-huh.
former guidance counselors. Like without skipping a beat, the customer just goes, "Oh, I've seen this before." By the way, fun fact: the woman actually looking for the milk, the expiration date, that is actually Kevin Smith's mom. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, Martin Scorsese is not the only person that puts his mother in a film.
Or Rob Reiner.
Or Rob Reiner. That is very true. Director's trademark. But anyway, the you talk about um, perfect comedic timing, how everything just really kind of flows well, and this also goes a lot into editing. Scott Moisier, who edited the film, Kevin Smith's longtime editor, did a great job. When Veronica's storming out of the store And Dante, try not to suck any dick on your way to the parking lot. And you just see the guy up against the guy leaning up against the wall trying to go follow her to the parking lot. And Dante, hey, get back here. I just thought that. So, what is, what do you feel like is probably the most memorable line of the film?
I mean, aside from the one I just covered with the guy in the hoodie, who I think that incidentally, that guy plays multiple characters in the movie, including the guy testing the
Well,
eggs.
Flanagan, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he's kind of a legend in that movie too, in his own way. I mean, gosh, that's tough. I mean, outside of that line, golly, I kind of like the ad lib where and this guy, this particular actor, I heard from the commentary, he fought to get this line in the movie. He wanted so desperately to say the line. So like I give him props for that, but he wanted to call him shoe polish smell motherfucker when he was asking about taking free Gatorades or whatever, and he was just determined to get that line in the movie. He wanted so badly to say that, and so he found a way to get it in there. And so I guess that's the one I got to go with for number two, just because he fought so hard to get that in that movie.
I I know I know it's cliche, but I do feel like it's the most profound line of the film. Um, it's the most honest and just kind of explains everything that Dante is going through. And it's Kevin Smith's one line. There's a million fine chicks in the world, dude,
Mm.
but not all of them will bring you lasagna at work. Most of them just cheat on you.
Yeah.
To me, that sums up love in high school and college and how we, don't appreciate a good thing. And, that's kind of the wake up call for Dante that he has fucked all this up, that he has a good woman, somebody that's good looking, somebody that loves him, somebody that, all of these things. Now, I mean, obviously it doesn't work out because we don't get Clerks 2 where he falls in love with Becky. And I love Rosario Dawson. I mean, she is so wonderful in Clerks 2. Whether you like the movie Clerks 2, I mean, I mean, we can all admit it's obviously not as good as the first one, and Clerks 3 is definitely not as good as the other two. But it is kind of over the top and funny, and there's a lot of poignant things in that film. And obviously, Kevin Smith got to do a lot more on a bigger budget.
I still love the Silence of the Lambs homage, though. That to me stole the show. That to me made just seeing that whole sequence was enough for me.
That is very, very true. But yeah, Kevin Smith, just that one line. Um, and you can so here's an interesting thing about Kevin Smith giving that line. It's kind of like he's a guardian angel, right?
Hmm.
If delivering that line. I feel like it's foreshadowing Dogma, where there are a couple of prophets, so-called prophets, and it kind of goes into, who these characters are in that world. Because Kevin Smith, I mean, he always gives himself the most profound lines in the film. Um, and that's that one for Clerks. But then again, I mean, the entire conversation about Return of the Jedi and all the innocent bystanders and the contractor who come, they have this entire conversation, you know, about making choices, and it ties into, a mobster in New Jersey. It's like, what? It's such a ridiculous conversation, but it's also something you would have in a customer service job, you know,
Right.
philosophical. All right. So since we weren't critics in 1994, we are going to do something special with each one of these films. We are going to grade it as professional critics here in Texas
Mm.
of That Nerd Show and the North Texas Film Critics Association. And we are going to give every film in 1994 that we talk about a grade based on our grading scale. What would you give Clerks out of 10?
Okay, so my first number off the top of my head is an 8 out of 10.
All right. Okay. I don't know if I can handle this apocalyptic moment that you and I are going to give a film the same grade, that we are going to agree. This might be ruining 2024. I agree. It is definitely um, an eight. The film, you can't, even 30 years later, you can't say it's a perfect 10. There's certainly issues from style, the filmmaking, and kind of limited on what they do. You know, also dealing with lighting and just technical stuff that you would have had in a much bigger film. But you have to also praise how they made things work. Like, you know, they could only just shoot after hours. So they were shooting at night and they had to come up with a reason why the shutters were closed. So the whole
Right.
thing about they were locked and he puts the sign up with shoe polish, you know, um, I think that there are some unresolved kind of storylines as well. You know, the girl that they go to her wake and something happens, they're all running out. I mean, you know, what's the backstory to that? And of course, they make reference to the Julie Dreyer character who died in a swimming pool, and then of course make reference to the all rats.
Well, I feel like I got to interject one little thing though with that, because if you watch the 20th anniversary box set, which there's probably a Blu-ray version, but I bought the DVD box set when it came out, and they had the director's cut. And not only did it have the original ending in it, but they also included some animated scenes that were based on stuff that was cut out, such as what led to them running out during the wake. And so you see
Oh,
bits and pieces of the story that are missing. They're added back in with animated scenes, but voiced uh, by the characters by those actual actors. So
by Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I would
Oh,
say that's worth watching just to kind of get the full scope if you really want that.
oh no, 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 no. I agree. I think being able to go back and add some, you could call it Kevin Smith's special editions.
Yeah.
um, I just think, I mean, I can't say that it's absolutely perfect because, you know, there are, if you watch it from the standpoint of making a film, there's very amateurish type things that happen. I mean, you can tell that Jason Mewes, you know, fumbles his lines a lot throughout the film. It works, but some of the delivery is not right there. It's like when he's trying to tell the thing about his grandmother, you can tell he's not remembering his lines. He's trying to look at a cheat card, and Kevin Smith kind of has to come in and say his profound line. Um, but you know, all the different cast of characters that come in, so it makes it it's still a very good film in my mind, and that's
Just
why.
snowballed him.
Oh,
No, I think for what it is, it's about as good as it can get. I mean, I think an 8 out of 10 for a movie that was made on a budget of $27,000,
yeah,
before it was, bought by Miramax is damn good. So
yeah, and with a film that, you know, they could have gone back and shot more or changed things and tried to make it bigger, to at least have the courage to say, you know what, even though the ending changed, we're leaving it as is because this is what people saw. Um, there are some, again, we're going to get to the impact of this, but I had a chance to interview Brian O'Halloran and Marilyn Gigliotti, who played Veronica in the film back in 2016 at a convention. And, you know, they were very wonderful in telling stories about this is their first film credit. Um, pretty much everybody who was in that movie, that's their first film credit. Lisa Spooner, who
yeah.
uh, she she was found because she was taking action. She had done stage work and all that, but hadn't really done anything. I think she maybe had done a commercial, um, but everybody was community theater and that kind of thing. You know, you never knew where this was going to take off. And Marilyn Gigliotti did do other films. She never became a big star, and that's what she'll always be known for. Brian O'Halloran, the same thing, but he has popped up and stuff. They love to tell the story of the film got shown like 3 or 4 times at Sundance. And by the time they got out there, yeah, after the first screening, like they arrived and people knew who they were. That was kind of their star moment, and people were talking about Clerks. So that's how it kind of became the darling. And Marilyn had even said that she was getting people quoting lines from the movie on the street. Like she knew what they were talking about. People are at 37 dicks. And then the whole lasagna thing. And she has kind of become known that when she does an interview, she like brings lasagna. That's kind of her. She was very nice. And I mean, they were both just wonderful and stuff to hang out with. But
But
um,
just think about all the movies though that are made on a low budget who have to bring in friends and family who aren't real actors, and look at how bad a lot of those are, and look at how good this movie is. I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't happen all the time. It's a miracle.
no,
It
I mean,
so
I credit that to Scott Mosher, who edited this film. I don't know what experience he had before, but it is put together well. And you found really gifted actors. I mean, obviously they're not great. They're not going to win an Academy Award, but I love Brian O'Halloran as an actor. His facial expressions, he's got very, very interesting. And then Jeff Anderson is just kind of a loudmouth. And his timing and how and everything he talked about. I know it's written by Kevin Smith, but he's become an interesting filmmaker in his own right. He's directed a few things. Um, the impact of this film, like I said, we talked about at the beginning that Slacker, you can always make the argument that it really began the modern indie filmmaking movement, in the 90s. But Clerks is the one that took it to a whole new level that people have aspired to be. So here are some of the most low budget films and the most successful coming after that. One of my favorites happened 10 years after Clerks, Napoleon Dynamite, made for, I think, um, like $200,000. And, it's a funny, charming film. A lot of the people in the film are from that small town. Um, it works. And not saying it's as good as Clerks, but it's a funny movie and it's kind of iconic. I still love seeing people that have the Vote for Pedro t-shirts.
and I
Uh,
was in college at the time when that movie came out, and I knew so many college students who were wearing those T-shirts at the
yeah.
time.
Um, we wouldn't have the Blair Witch Project. And love or hate the Blair Witch Project, you can't deny how successful its success when it was literally made for less money than Clerks, with like a handy cam of taking young actors and going out in the woods and shooting all of this.
It
Uh,
started a whole genre, a whole subgenre of found footage films just because of that movie.
yeah, that's if it weren't for Blair Witch Project, we wouldn't have Cloverfield, which I still argue about the shaky cam. Uh,
Yeah,
but that movie made, you know, like 1,000 times more than what they made that film for. And I think part of that too was part of what made that film successful, 25 years later is the use of the internet and marketing and being able to build up the idea that the Blair Witch was actually real. People were,
right.
they built websites and talking about the lore, and we weren't we were a little bit more gullible about the internet in 1999 than we are now. Um, so there is that. Election, Alexander Payne's movie, had a very low budget as well, and turned out to be, quite successful. Uh, so you get Christopher Nolan's film, um, The Following, which made him kind of iconic in this near-war sci-fi-ish, but he made that movie for $6,000. Um, Definitely made all of its money back, and it was because of that style of filmmaking that he got a small budget to do Memento, which catapulted him into a whole new sphere when it comes to directing. Um, low budget independent films. Which one do you feel like is probably just as good as Clerks, and has the biggest impact from Clerks being able to be successful?
Well, without a question, it has to be Bottle Rocket for me because I feel like that's sort of our DFW version of Clerks in that regard. Because Wes Anderson was, a college student. He went to film school, and they just kind of had this very simple movie that they decided to film in Dallas, and they were able to get some pretty big names on board for the movie, which is interesting. But I feel like without Clerks and without Kevin Smith, we wouldn't have Wes Anderson and Bottle Rocket at least to the same level that we wound up getting. So,
Well, you know what? I am not going to disagree with you on that at all. Um, and I was kind of teeing you up for that because I knew you were going to say Bob. But again, I can't disagree. It's it's such a great film with what they have done, and um, I mean, who knew that we were, Owen and Luke Wilson were going to be such, great. I mean, well, even Andrew Wilson, because I mean, I love him in Whip It, the World Derby movie, wearing his little cut off jean shirts. So, uh, I think he told me once he actually still has those. He was here at the Dallas Film Festival with their parents. When him and Luke had that thing about taking the space shuttle across country. It was a short film. I can't remember what year though. I think it was 2016, maybe 17. But he was kind of hanging out, in the pub. And anyway, here's another great one that doesn't get talked about enough, but 20 years later, I feel like is still iconic. A great, very low budget sci-fi film, Primer. You remember that one?
What was it again?
Primer. It's about
Primer.
Yeah, it's about the two guys. They were like making software out of their garage, or maybe it was hardware. Here's the they are intellectual engineers that build and sell error checking technology with the help of their friend. Uh, but when Aaron and Abe accidentally invent what they think is a time machine, Abe builds a version capable of transporting a human and puts the device to the test. And the two friends obsess over their creation, and they discover the dark consequences of their action. So it's a sci-fi time travel thing where they go back in time and they're trying to deal with uh, uh, the morality of time travel, like, winning the lottery, blah, blah, blah. Um, Shane Carruth is another independent filmmaker that has done some very interesting things, but this was made. Uh, Look that up real quick. Um, no, that film was made for $7,000.
Wow.
Came out in 2004. Uh,
Wow.
didn't quite make $1 million, but its box office, but it made about It made about $850,000. Made its money back, and it won the Sundance Grand Jury Prize um, back in like 2004, I believe. So that was another one that kind of became the darling of Sundance, and then was released later that year. And that was shot here in Dallas.
Cool.
Yeah. So you get you get a lot of great films that come out of this, that anybody can do it type thing. Um, it doesn't take a lot of money to craft a good story. Robert Rodriguez, his original film El Mariachi. I mean, obviously the reshot version with a very gorgeous Selma Hayek and Antonio Banderas is better, but what he was able to do with that, um, there,
I mean, even a movie like Boogie Nights, this was originally a very cheap,
yeah,
low budget documentary style story about Dirk Diggler. And I think if you get the Blu-ray or even the DVD, there's in the special features embedded in there, you can watch the original movie, and it's got a lot of the same material that was eventually used on the higher scale film, but it's
Yeah.
just a cheap, low rent, low budget indie film originally, just kind of told like a
Well,
documentary. So
I mean, they got 15 million for the budget. First time kind of director uh, with Paul Thomas Anderson. So, I mean, you can't, like I said, you can't really deny the impacts of indie filmmakers being able to shoot low budget films, go off to a film festival, and or be able to craft a story. And as we debate overinflated superhero movies that if they don't make $1 billion, they literally cost $500 million between the production, the film budget, and then all the marketing that goes into it. And it's like, look at all these movies that are better stories than half the shit that Disney has put out in the last 5 years. Or, well, yeah, almost 5 years since Endgame. So, um, and Kevin Smith, here to me, this is the last great impact of films with Kevin Smith. I love Kevin Smith as a filmmaker, but he's also made some very, kind of cheesy films they're just downright kind of stupid. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is a stupid movie. It's a fun movie because we love the characters. Mallrats is also kind of stupid. But if he hadn't had success with Clerks, we wouldn't have gotten Chasing Amy. And Chasing Amy is a great movie. Very well written, very true about relationships. And that's a whole nother one where he has the most profound, you know,
yeah,
dialogue in the
yeah.
film. So we talk about Chasing Amy all the time, and we both love that film.
Did you
Uh,
know I always wanted to be a dancer?
what you don't know about me can fill the Grand Canyon. So 30 years ago, and I think it's important that in 1994, we had released a great indie film that, in a lot of ways, surpassed in popularity than Slacker, even though Slacker can be credited as the first. Um, and nothing against Richard Linklater and being able to do that film. I don't think it has as much of an impact because that film is very much a Austin type film than anything else. Clerks, I think, is you don't even have to say it's New Jersey or anything like that. It could literally be set anywhere, and people
Well,
could.
it's wound up having a total like a trilogy now, a franchise. I mean, it's gone well beyond what it could have ever been imagined. I mean,
Yeah. So, and like I said, how many filmmakers have we interviewed at film festivals who have gone off and made great films? That have turned out to be, successful and they've been able to do it. We've interviewed her more than a handful of times. Tracy Lehman, Texas born, and who's got her first feature coming out at South by with John Leguizamo. I never can pronounce his name correctly. John Leguizamo.
John Leguizamo.
Leguizamo. Thank you, thank you. And we hope it's going to be here at the Dallas Film Festival. I've already given her a hard time about it. I'm like, I expected to be here, and you holding a lightsaber microphone while we interview you over your first feature. But so, like I said, there's no denying the impact about Clerks. All right, one last thing. We're going to close out us talking about this film. What is your absolute favorite scene from Clerks?
Ooh, wow.
I know
That's
it's
another tough one. The first a scene that I almost forgot to remember. I guess I'm going to go ahead and put it out there as my favorite scene. But there are a number of scenes, but oh man, I guess I got to go with the scene with the old man who eventually dies in the bathroom from a
trying
heart
to
attack.
trying to get the nudie magazine and
I think he comes back for one more question about 3 times before he finally leaves Dante alone, and Dante winds up giving him like half the store before he goes away.
Uh, this is my absolute like favorite scene is the Chewy's rep leading the mob and Veronica with the fire extinguisher, but just the one line. Like anytime we use a reference in a movie about fascism, you know who else was taking orders? Just taking orders, the Nazis. I'm like, how do you go from it's
Cancer
smoking?
merchant.
No, they're just chucking the cigarettes at him. Yeah, I love the fact that that's at the beginning of the film. It's like the first major thing that kind of happens, and he's trying to sneak out. It's just like stop right there. Who's leading this mob? And then the whole thing just ends with the one guy who threw a cigarette at him. Can I get a pack of spokes?
And that was the same guy who I think came back several other times as other
Walt Flanagan.
characters.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember his
like
name. So
that was Walt Flanagan's the first of many characters in that.
yes.
Walt Flanagan is really the man with a thousand faces in Kevin Smith films. So I'll say that. All right, we have many more films that we are going to be talking about in 1994. But like I said, we wanted to start off with the indie darling of that year that started a whole new movement and gave us Kevin Smith. And the world is a better place having Kevin Smith as a filmmaker. Some of his movies are kind of stupid. Some are very predictable, but funny anyway. I'm sorry. I love Zach and Mary Make a Porno. That movie is still funny, and I can watch it anytime. And Dogma. Dogma is just absolutely fucking hysterical. And by the way, Miramax, Weinstein Company, whatever, Harvey's in jail now. Do the right thing. Give the rights back to Kevin Smith. So, all right. We'll be back for more episodes and more movies. I'm Marcus Blake, and this is Alex Marr. And you guys have a great evening. And we'd love to hear more about your favorite movies from 1994. And you can tweet us out at That Nerd Show.